So good afternoon, everyone. So today we have gathered here for the afternoon session of the Faculty Development Program. And today we have with us Mr. Tomogno Chattopadhyay. So he's a famous storyteller, transformation and growth coach, facilitator, and he also has a near to 2.5 decades of experience in learning and organization development, leadership
Hello, everyone.
development, capability building, sales, and marketing. He has impacted various organizations through initiatives on manager and team effectiveness, market model innovation, cross-functional teamwork and collaboration, engaging and developing youth professional at various capacities. He has also facilitated and lead various projects with leaders and process experts from US, Australia, Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, UAE, and Southeast Asia. His work experience span across global healthcare and biomedical engineering companies as sales leader, commercial leader, head of L&D function, project lead of executive leadership teams as a consultant for education and corporate hospitals across India. So he also believes that a combination of ecosystem approach, personal accountability, and customized intervention, exposure to real life problems, and coaching support on the practical situations lead to organizational effectiveness. So it's a pleasure to have Mr. Tomogno Chattopadhyay with us today. So without wasting much of time, so I think that it's better we can now hand over the session to Mr. Tomogno Chattopadhyay for his useful lecture and which can help us for this particular faculty development program. So thank you, Mr. Tomogno Chattopadhyay, once again. So
My pleasure.
over to you. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And it's an absolute pleasure and honor to be a part of your faculty development program. It happened a little sooner. I was meeting Abhijit the other day last week when I was in Kolkata, and he suggested that I should take this. And when this conversation came in existence, and I kept on wondering, I mean, entrepreneurship, okay, that sounds great. But all of us, if we have realized from our early childhood, if not by birth, from our early childhood till today, at various point in time, we have demonstrated that entrepreneurial skills. And as we talk through today's session for next 45 or 50 minutes, and then I do not know how the entire setup is placed, I take you through my understanding and my perspective of training need assessment of being an entrepreneur. Then if you have time, we may have some question and answers. And it started by telling storytelling. So my stories are purely from the life that I have experienced. And I keep on saying, we have questions. Some of the questions would be answered. Some of the questions may not be answered right now, but maybe later on. And there would be certain questions which will never have any answers. So those questions will never have answers. But I'll see how much to the expectation I can live up to. And with this, I shared the screen, and it is 4+2. So I am looking at maybe 150, latest 155 before the entire presentation gets over. And then we can have question and answer session as appropriate. My screen visible to all of you?
Yes, it's visible.
And what's the level of me being audible? Because three recent questions of the century is like, am I audible? Can you see my screen? And are you there? So in case I get dropped off or my voice starts clicking and clacking, please let me know. Then I may want to reconnect and improve my connection. As of now, it's going good at my place.
Perfectly good. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay.
Surely, sir.
So this topic I was suggested by Abhijit Giri, and I'd like to thank entire Adamas University, Abhijit Giri, Dr. Saptarshi, as well as one of my old associates, Atanu, for giving me the opportunity to associate with Adamas. The journey started for me with Adamas is 1.5 couple of years back when I got the first opportunity of interacting with the students and various professors. And from that time, I found that, yes, this is one organization or institute where I should be part of. And It's about a journey. It's about a journey. Me being an entrepreneur, I don't consider myself being an entrepreneur for the last 3 years. Uh, After going through various entrepreneurial journey, I have realized that all of us are entrepreneurs since childhood, if not from birth, because entrepreneurial acumen or entrepreneurial behavior or approach is nothing but taking risk, willing to fail, looking at finding out new options, see how can we reform ourselves and others for the betterment of the society and as well as the industry and organization. Now, I like to share with you something. A young boy, around 12 years of age, he was somewhere in Latin America. His name was Rico. The Rico was told by his father to go and purchase a donkey for their agricultural work. It was a long journey. From his village, he went to another village, and it was chilly night. It was very cold, it was snowing, and he kind of reached to the farmer who was about to sell a donkey of his. And he went and he said, "Sir, I want to purchase a donkey for my dad and for my agricultural work." And there was a conversation and negotiation. And the farmer said, "Okay, you have to pay $100. Because rest of the donkeys that they talked about, it were $400, $500. The only donkey which was there at $100, it was a very sick one. Rico thought, okay, we will nurture, we will make it healthy. I will take it. But it was a chilly night, and he was to come back to his village next morning. So what he did is he requested the farmer if he can keep the donkey for the night, and next morning he'll come and take the donkey away. And the farmer agreed. Next morning, Rico went to the farmer and asked for the donkey. And the farmer took him to the donkey yard and showed him the donkey. And to his surprise, the donkey was dead because of the chilly night, snowfall, and it was a sick donkey. So Rico said, "Sir, the donkey is dead. I cannot take it." And the farmer said, "Okay, but the problem is I have already sold it to you. It's no longer my donkey, and I cannot refund the money back to you. You have to take it." I said, "Okay, let me take it. I will use this donkey, not for agricultural work, but for making some money." Farmer said, "How? It's a dead donkey." Rico said, "It's a dead donkey. That's all. That's absolutely fine. But I will just present it in a way that it will not appear dead." And Rico took the donkey. And after a week or so, he came back. He came back and said, "See, I have made more than $300 out of that dead donkey." And the farmers were asking, "How?" Rico said, "No, I took that donkey and I was thinking what is to be done with the donkey." Then I realized, I thought this donkey, I will show this donkey as an alive donkey. It's not dead. So what he did, he went to the marketplace and he said, "I am going to throw a lottery. The price of the ticket are $2. Who wins the lottery, he will take this donkey, which is worth $100. The farmer said, "Then?" He said, "Then 400 people participated. 200 people participated. I got $400. And see, I gave you $100. I got $300. But what happened? The person who won the lottery, he must have said that you have given me a donkey, which is a dead donkey. What did you do with that?" He said, "The person who won, he came to me and said, 'Hey, Rico, this is a dead donkey. I want my money back.' I did not only give him the donkey, I also gave him his $2 back. So I made $298. Now, there might be various questions in this story, but the story tells about, it's about taking risk. It's about thinking out of the box, innovating and reforming. And that is what entrepreneurs do. Now, the session that we're going to talk through today would look like this. We'll give a little context about entrepreneurship. Then we'll also talk about entrepreneurial traits. Then we'll look at what are some of the specific skill set an entrepreneur must have. And how, being an entrepreneur, because it's me on my own and I may have a team, how do I identify critical training requirements for continuous development and sustainability? Then we will also look at, we say what is to be done. Training need to be assessed. Training need to be analyzed. Training requirement, competency requirement to be assessed and analyzed. But how do we do this? And believe you me, it is no different from how an organization identifies critical training requirements. Because when you are an entrepreneur, you are the organization. And when you are an entrepreneur and an organization, you have team and people around you, you may have to follow the same principle and methodology in identifying what are those critical training requirements. Now, what about the context? I may ask this question. As per the history and research, who was the first entrepreneur? And I also researched, and what I found is, first and foremost, the journey of entrepreneurial evolution happened like the name entrepreneur came from French entreprendre, which means to undertake. And the first person, the first entrepreneur, which history says, there might be some controversy and might be a contradiction, but what history says, Marco Polo, who came to Middle East for trading, the famous Silk Road, towards the end of 13th century. What Marco Polo did, which is pretty much what we do as an entrepreneur, he had conversations with the financial stakeholders of Venice. He's from Venice. And he said, I will take your goods, I will sell it off, I will take 25%. All the emotional risk or the financial risk or the physical and mental risk is mine. Your risk is only money. So Marco Polo used to take those goods, he used to sell it off, he used to take a cut of 25% and he used to give that money back, the rest of the profit back to the financial investors who has given that money for him to purchase goods and sell off. Now Marco Polo was a person, it is said that he was the first entrepreneur. And he did it very, very successfully from 1271 to 1295 in the Middle Eastern part, which is Silk Road. And in Netflix, there is a series called Marco Polo, which is very different from what Marco Polo was actually is in existence. So there the journey started of entrepreneurs. Now, entrepreneurial journey, how it evolved. That was 13th century. 3 centuries passed by. More and more people started learning about newer things. They started getting connected with various other parts of the world, and then they relooked at how did we redefine the word entrepreneur or the entrepreneurial journey. 16th century, an entrepreneur was considered to be those who were engaged in military expedition, which means any military general, because they used to take resource from the king or the emperor, and they used to take the risk of either expanding the nation or getting defeated. And the risk and the onus was absolutely on him or her. Moving ahead, one more century, beginning of 17th century, things become a little more civilized. There it is called persons who were engaged in engineering activities or large construction, getting funds from the government or the king or the emperor. Typically, in those days, a priest was by and large looking like, by and large, behaved like an entrepreneur. Early 7th century, towards from early to middle, the definition changed. The connotation changed. It is more like person bearing risks of profit or loss of a fixed price contract from the government. Who were those? Some famous names. John Law was the person who founded the Royal Bank of France, and he also founded Mississippi Company. What he did, he basically created a licensing between US and France for trading. The profit and loss risk was absolutely up to him. 20th century. Entrepreneurs, the definition, the projection, the depiction changed. They are the people who used to recreate, revolutionize, and innovate things, not only for various organizations, but also for the society and people. You can think of Edward Harriman, who reorganized the railroad in the United States. After the Civil War, there was a stall till late of 19th century. But Edward Harriman, what he did, he revolutionized and he re-engineered the United States Railroad. And there is one famous person, John Morgan. We know J.P. Morgan Stanley. John Morgan developed his large banking house by reorganizing and financing nation's industries and the finances from the government. And in 21st century, entrepreneurs, which means all of us. And I started the session by saying that all of us are entrepreneurs at one point in time. We may not have done it consistently, but we also reinvented, recreated, reformed things. And I can think of me bunking the school and reinventing some excuses which might look believable to my parents and teachers, which might not be the case, of course. Yes, the heroes, all of us, not only a corporate professional, because anybody and everybody at various point in time, we recreated, reinvented, and reformed our thinking for the betterment of not only us, but also for our society and organization. And who are these people? We talk of Steve Jobs, we talk of Mark Zuckerberg, and I also love talking about Dipinder Goyal, the founder of Zomato, or Agarwal, the founder of Oyo Room, or maybe Sanjeev Vichchandani, the founder of 99 Acres, of course, Tony Fernandez, founder of Air Asia. These guys are the heroes of today's free enterprise market. Now, if we look back, what about India? So we talked about Vichchandani and Goyal and Agarwal and Tony Fernandez is from Malaysia, of course. In India, if you look at, the journey started long back, as early as from the Rig Veda time, when metal handicrafts existed in society. Before India came into contact with the Western people, they used to organize in a particular type of economic and social system of the village and in the community. How did they do that? It was more like exchange. It was not a monetary transaction. It was more like exchange. I give you my rice, you give your paddy. I give you my silk, you give your shawl. And the artisan industry basically flourished and became world famous in the pre-British India. And Bengal had its own share of Kora silk. Kashmir had its share of shawl, Ahmedabad dhotis, Banaras metalwares, those bangles and ornaments. But during British era, British somehow lost interest on this artisan and the entrepreneurial industry. In those days, nobody used to call them entrepreneur. The business industry kind of went into a nosedive and then it got reformed back. We're not going to talk about that. The reason I shared this information, it's only about telling all of us that we have been entrepreneurs. But the fact is as the world, as the society, as the corporate, as the financial sectors evolving and developing, we also have to evolve and develop. And we will see what are some of the things that an entrepreneur will do in order to constantly develop and how do they identify the development needs. What do today's entrepreneurs do? It's all about identifying opportunity, establishing vision. It's about persuading others for a greater cause. So me as an entrepreneur, gathering resources, Dr. Saptarshi, all of you, Abhijit, whosoever is at the part of Adamus and everybody associated with the faculty development programs, you did the role of gathering resources by being an entrepreneur. We create new ventures and we adapt and change with time. Now, if these are the things that we do, or any entrepreneur would do, what are those things that they have in common? And that is the second piece of this presentation, which is the entrepreneurial traits. If you look at an entrepreneur, there are various things I could gather as much as possible, which fits into this full depiction of this picture icon. If you look at this, passionate, being subject matter expert, self-reliant, disciplined, goal orientation, all of us have it, right? Some of us have many of things in a little larger quantity. Some of us have one or two things in a much larger quantity compared to others. But the interesting fact is all of us have it. Flexibility, willing to fail, being confident, being open-minded, being focused on a particular thing, being humble. Humility is today's buzzword for the leadership. Humility is today's buzzword for being a successful entrepreneur. Now, these are the traits, these are the attributes. Now, people might ask, okay, these are skills. My perspective and my understanding to this is these are the things which we get through our upbringing during our childhood days, during our adolescent days. When we develop, when we make it more sharper and strengthened, that becomes a skill of us, because we may have this, but we don't use it constantly. The moment we start using all of this constantly, consistently, it becomes a part of our behavior, and that becomes our skills. So what are the skills? What are the competencies? Being an entrepreneur, behavioral competencies are nothing but enthusiasm, motivation, willingness, ability to take risk. And these are the behavioral competency which tells this is how an entrepreneur behaves. This is what he demonstrates or reflects to others. What are some of the workplace competencies? And these are pretty similar to what a corporate professional in any sector, including academia or education sector, would have. Teamwork, planning and organizing skills, networking, and problem solving. Now, we looked at the traits and we looked at the competencies. There are many other competencies. Now, there are conversation which goes on between competencies and skills. We will talk about that in a while for a short span of time, because competencies and skills have a little difference because they complement each other. And that brings a very interesting, I would say, principle or concept which I like the most during my journey of being a professional and being a freelancer and an entrepreneur. There are two things. One is skill minus will is equal to nil. If you have skill but you don't have will, then the result is nil. And competency, when added with skills and developed through skill development, that makes one person competent. The entrepreneurial competency, if I look at, those are the behavioral and workplace competencies. We need to have the skill. So we need to have workplace competencies, we need to have behavioral competencies, and we need to add skills. Skills are nothing but practicing on a certain thing to make it more developed, more advanced. So what are some of the skill sets? And the reason we are talking about this is, as long as we are able to realize and understand these are the requirements of an entrepreneur, then it is easy for us to look at what are some of the ways and means through which we can assess the training needs. So what are the skill sets? I need to talk about this person. I'm not sure how many of you have heard or seen this person. His name is Kim Collins. Now, Kim Collins was once a 100-meter world record holder in Olympics. He was a sprinter. And then there was a long gap. Now, what happened in 2016, he came back at the age of 40. And, at the age of 40, you don't basically replace someone with the age of 40 on a 100-meter track and field race, that too for an Olympic or world championship. Kim Collins, after 5 years of, I would say, exile, self-exile, because of injury and other things, he came back. He had rehabilitation, came back, and he announced that, okay, good news is I have come back. Now I will participate in 2016 Olympic 100-meter as well as 2016 World Championship. Now, Kim Collins he is an entrepreneur. He might have coaches, he might have managers, but his decision, his ability to take risk and making that decision makes him an entrepreneur, isn't it? Any sportsman, any athlete, any movie stars, any professors, teachers, students, all of them are. The moment you start taking risk, the moment you start reinventing, reforming yourself, and at the same time you are accepting the fact that there is a huge possibility me being failing, that makes you an entrepreneur. So what he said, Kim said, strive for continuous improvement instead of perfection. And that is how an entrepreneurial journey must look like. So what are the skill sets? Basic skill sets I talked about. There are many. I could think of this as must because that has worked for me and many other entrepreneurs with whom I have in touch with. It's about business management, analytical problem solving, and the more when I created this entire presentation deck, I realized there is no rocket science being an entrepreneur. Along with skill set, you add the mindset, and you continuously pursue on that mindset along with the skill sets. You are on the entrepreneurial journey. And it is not defined by the amount of money you earn. It's not defined by the number of sessions you do, but it is defined by the amount of rethinking, reorganizing, and the amount of value that it could add to even one person. It's about business management, analytical skills, problem solving, communication and listening. Of course, listening is a part of communication, but yes, there are verbal and written and non-verbal communication along with that important skill of listening. Financial acumen, strategic thinking and planning, time management. I can read on, and there might be n number of these kinds of skills that an entrepreneur would have. But these are the must, because in the journey of being an entrepreneur, when we are able to identify and realize these skills, it not only gives us the working knowledge, how to become a successful entrepreneur, but it also gives us a overall, it's a complemented behavioral change which would make you more sustainable in the marketplace and also in the free enterprising market. But the problem is, entrepreneurs are not only born, but they can also be trained and developed, because unless until we train ourselves and develop ourselves, we would not be able to cope up with the dynamics of the world. Because no one identifies my training need. Me being an entrepreneur, I have to identify it myself. And it is not only about me, it is also about my team. If I'm working with a team, if I've built a team, because there is no one on my top to say, hey, Tom, you have to work on this, you need to improve on this. You have to find your own ways. You might have to engage others. And entrepreneurs, we do need motivation. Like this session, it's an art of motivation for me to be a part of this session. We require reform in our behaviors. We want to rework, redevelop, and reinvent some of the behaviors in order to cope up with the industry and the recent wantings. And I develop my own ventures, so I have to develop myself continuously. Now, in this development, there is one concept which talks about the cycle of development. What is a cycle of development? Before starting anything and everything, there is a need. Now, I have to establish the need. So we may call it attitude towards certain things, and you may call interest or need towards certain things. So once the need is established, so this is how a typical training evolves. Anywhere in the organization, anywhere in the world, educational society, pharmaceutical, engineering, banking, IT, the same cycle of development revolves around. When we are able to establish the need and then we stop. So somebody comes and establishes my need of being a better presenter. And I identified the need, and then that's it. Nothing else happens. So what I get into is a motivation trap. So I'll feel utterly demotivated because the person came and told me, you need to improve on your presentation skills, but he didn't tell me or shouldn't tell me how to improve on the presentation skills. So I need to have knowledge how to improve on the presentation skills. There we talk about fundamental concepts and principles. Now there we stop. So the person trains me. The person tells me, gives me the fundamental concepts and principles of how to become a better presenter. Then he did not allow me or she didn't allow me to do a practice or rehearsal. Then once again, there is a trap. It's called 6 o'clock trap. Now, why the 6 o'clock trap? Because in a 24 hours watch cycle, if you look at the 6 o'clock trap is actually situated at 6 o'clock, which means half the way I was helped to establish the need, I was given the knowledge, but I was not given the opportunity to practice. So I need to practice as well. Those skills those training that I have gone through, I need to practice the skill to make it a part of my skill and behavior. There we practice with support. So what we do typically in a pre-exam session. So I've seen that in my kids' school, they have a practice exam where the teachers guide and support them for identifying the most appropriate answers. Now, suppose I'm a part of Adams University, so I've told about the need of being a better presenter. I was given the knowledge, and I was also given ample opportunity of practicing those. And then I was not allowed. Yes, thank you, Doc. If you have any question, please write here in the chat box. That will make a lot of sense. So you can answer these questions one by one towards the end of the session. Yeah. Now I practice. You've given me ample opportunity of practicing. But then you did not give me the opportunity of applying that in my day-to-day work. So what I would feel is that's the end of perfection. And I will get into a trap called resistance trap. So I will not move further. So in order to create those behaviors or new knowledge as a part of my own behavior or skill, I need to apply that. Not only that, I need to have feedback. I need to be owning those skills. I need to have recognition and support from others. Now, this cycle of development, people might ask, what it is to do with entrepreneurs? So when entrepreneurs develop or improve themselves, they also must go through this cycle of development. And that holds true for anybody, anywhere, everywhere in the world. All right. So all of these are done. So these are all concepts, fundamental principles we talked about. Now, how do I identify the requirements? That's the meat of it. That's the biggest question. How do I? Because we need to understand. Suppose, for example, you are standing on a seashore and this is your destination. And we want to reach the destination. The first essential question that I need to ask myself is, where do I stand currently? If I do not know where am I currently, I would not be able to make it to my destination properly. So understanding the current reality, understanding where I am, where we are as an entrepreneur in terms of our skills, our competencies, our knowledge, and understanding. So how do we do? Being an entrepreneur, what happens is we not only work for ourselves, we essentially work for some organizational clients. So first we understand the roles. And then we align our goals and key performance indicator. Yes, difference between entrepreneurs and skilled person. Doc, Dr. Haldar, will it be okay if I take this question? That's a fantastic question. I must acknowledge that. But take this question towards the end of the session. I just keep a note of it.
So I think it's better if we actually have this question answer session at the end of the talk. I think that's better.
But that's a very insightful question. I must acknowledge that. Thank you very much for this question.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I just take a note of it.
Okay. So at the end of the talk, I can also read out the questions for you. That is
that's great, Doctor. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
So it's about understanding roles, aligning your own goals and your team goals and key performance indicators. Now, KPI is a word, honestly speaking, I hate key performance indicators. It seems like you will be judged time and again. That's a fact. That's a hard fact of life. But we must embrace this. Although I personally detest, but with the tide of the dynamism, I have to flow with that as well. And then identifying behavioral indicators. What are those behaviors that will demonstrate that you are more relevant and more connected to your goal and KPIs? And then how align behaviors with the key competencies. So understanding where we are currently are basically a set of competency skills, your goal, and the key performance indicators. And at the end of the day, what is the measure of success? How does success look like to us? So I have broken it down to small pieces. So when we say understanding roles, it's about your role in the organization. Suppose you're heading an organization. You may be an individual, or you may have a team, or you may have partner. What role exactly do you play in the entire journey? And your role in the client organization. I may be a consultant. I may be a strategist. I may be a solution provider. I may be a pure play trainer. And then I will look at not the organization's goal, that we will understand. We also need to look at my goal, individual goal, team goals, and what are those key performance indicators, which if we target and work on will help us achieve our goals. The client's goal. And what behavior and skills will accomplish these goals. Not only that, what are some of the skills and competencies we currently have? And what are some of the skills and competencies we might have to acquire, might have to develop? And how does success look like? For your organization, how does success look like? How do you define your success? I am an entrepreneur. So I have a vision of connecting with 10 organizations in next 2 years and add value for their organization's people overall development. And then I break it down to pieces, which means if I do that, what is it that my financial would look like? And if I have to reach that financial, what are some of the key areas I need to target? Suppose I target mid-sized companies who are growing. There's a mid-sized company. Then if I have targeted mid-sized companies, what are some of the key skill sets or competency areas that I must have in order to cater their requirements? And then I look at out of those competencies and skill sets I must have in order to cater their value, what are some of the skills and competencies I have? What are some of the skills and competencies I may have to acquire in order to make me make myself more proficient? And the question is, all of this, when do I know I need this? It's very difficult for all of us, because I do not know as an entrepreneur, okay, what kind of skill sets do I require? When do I require this? There are some indicators like key performance indicators. The first and foremost indicators we say when your goals are not being met. That's the first indicator. Then we may have to look at why is it that we are not able to meet our goals. Then employees are found to lack basic skills. It might be your employees, it might be your partner. Suppose you are having a project of coaching your high potential students, and when you run this project, consider yourself as the entrepreneur of that project. And then you create timelines, right? And then you look at how does success look like? So out of 50 high potential students, end of 1 year, if out of those 50, 25 of them move from level A to level B in terms of their knowledge, skills, and application ability, that's my success. Now down the line, 6 months, you look at only 5 of them have moved, which means we actually fell behind. So, and one important thing for an entrepreneur is, and I was sharing this with Abhijit Giri during one of my presentations last week, that it's always good to fail, but fail fast. So an entrepreneur must fail fast. They must identify, it must not be very late for him to realize, oh, I already failed. So what are those indicators? So look at these quick goals, look at the short, medium, long-term goals. Then employees are found to lack basic skills. Then there are requirements where the employees have the knowledge, but they do not know how to apply this knowledge. And there might be some new learning requirement for some technology, some tool. There might be some skill which you identified as gaps, which is becoming a hindrance for you to move ahead as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. And when you want to raise the bar of performance. So Sergey Bubka was the person, so Paul Walter, he broke his own record, I guess 64 times in his entire professional career. And every time he used to raise his performance. So these are the common areas where when we start see these things happening, we realize there is a need for training. Now, training need assessment, one thing we must understand that training and development are not the same thing. Because training encompasses so many things. There is a part of coaching, there is a part of teaching, knowledge sharing, knowledge dissemination, there is development, there is a new skill learning, there are new technology, then sharing experience, and then ultimately looking at the skill sets. What happens is, many times we professionals talk the training and development, and we use it synonymously. But the difference between training and development is, training is an act of learning basic skills and knowledge necessary for a particular job or a group of jobs. Whereas development is, it's all about growth of the individual in all respects. When I get trained, it's a one-time systematic approach. Now, when I want to improve on my current level of knowledge and skills, then becomes a developmental journey. So we talk about training and development synonymously, but training and development, that is how it is different. Because training is short-term, systematic, and organized procedure, focused to give knowledge and skills for a specific purpose. Whereas development is a long-term process utilizing a system and organizational approach. That's why I say organizational development. And there is a term called learning and development. And people ask, what is learning and development? I always tell people, with whatever limited understanding I have, is learning is current and development is future. You learn, that's the current thing that you do, and you develop over a period of time, that's the future. Similarly, training and development. I get trained on something, then I start developing on that particular knowledge and skills through constant practice, application, support, and recognition. It is more like conceptualizing the knowledge. So, for example, I know a bicycle we have to paddle through, and I learned how to ride a bicycle. But with the same learning, I may not be able to participate in a bicycle race or a cross-country race, where the basic knowledge that I require is to paddle through in order to get the cycle moving. But for a racing cycle, there are so many other things like changes of gear, balancing, looking at the tire width, looking at the weight of the front and rear tire. So then I conceptualize the in and out of bicycling in order to make myself developed as a racer of cycles. And coming towards the end, with all of this, the biggest question is, all of this we now understood, but how do we do this? How do we assess the training need being an entrepreneur for me and for my team and for some other organizations? So we say there are 5 wife and 1 husband kind of open-ended question. We need to ask these questions to ourselves, because it's not only about assessing my or my team's training need. It's also about organization, individual, the kind of task that you and your team members are assigned to, the level of performance and productivity, the suitability of training, and also the cost-benefit ratio. From an organization perspective, before I start training myself or my team, what is the overall accomplishment objective of the organization? And then at an individual level, who will receive the training, who will give the training, and their current level of existing knowledge of the subject or the skill, what kind of a task or job they're into. Now, I want to create a extempo training program for people who are purely into IT skills, whose job is to collect data, fill in that Excel file. Would that be relevant? Would that be connected to their requirements? We need to identify that as well. So look at the kind of job they're into and then identify the type of training that will fulfill their requirements of being a better professional. And when we say performance, it's not only about the financials, it's also about the productivity. Maybe the amount of time that somebody spends on doing a particular job or particular task. If there is a requirement of reducing the time that they spend, then they require some sort of training, might be time management. So somebody requires time management, you really cannot train them on the business management skills. Then suitability of training. There are different learning styles of us, learning styles of people, and there are different training methods. So before I didn't determine that there is a training that I need to deliver for myself and for the team or for some client organization, we need to look at the learning styles and whether this training would help us or the other client organization accomplish their goals. And then cost-benefit ratio. Will the outcome be greater than the time, resource, and monetary investment? These 3 questions, if all these 3 are yes, go for the training. If out of these 3, at 1 is no, then you might need to relook at what is a better way of delivering the training and what other training needs, if we can address, would help us making that cost-benefit ratio. But when we do that, always look at the long-term benefits. Because we, in our experience, organization would like to have a training through us, and they would like to have the success coming through them as early as yesterday. That does not happen, because it's end of the day, I tell myself and I tell others, it took me 48 years to reach 48 years. It is not, I was born 1st of May 1973 and 2nd of May 1973, I became 10 years. That does not happen. Everything has its own time. And me being a fitness enthusiast, I always tell, if you are into fitness, building muscles and becoming a bodybuilder, you need to have patience, because it's a game of maturity. Training is also a game of maturity. So we show maturity, because the problem with entrepreneur, the challenge, not a problem, is I do not have anybody who would guide me, because it's my own business. I have to guide my team. I have to guide others. Who would guide me? And so So that critical question, I say, that's the biggest question that we need to address, and we'll address that in a while. Now, assessment methods, if we talk at very simple, which is not very different from the kind of assessments that many other organizations, organized sectors and large organizations do. The best way we can identify the training requirement is through direct observation, which is on-job coaching, maybe having conversation. Survey questions are good options. But the caveat is, if these questions are targeted in a way that the participants or your team members, I feel like, okay, they're trying to look at my loopholes, then the entire purpose of the survey question gets defeated. So we say, when you do survey questionnaire, use open-ended question where you ask them to describe some situation and experience. Then third-party feedback, maybe stakeholder feedback. So you may have tied up with some other consulting organization for the faculty or for maybe the staffs or the students, and you want to make sure that I get a very, very unbiased, neutral opinion about what is their current level of proficiency. Get those stakeholder feedback or take peer feedback. The peer feedback works best in the mid-senior level. And then supervisor feedback as well. Now, the reason I say this is, when you are an entrepreneur, you are not only an entrepreneur, you are a business head, you are an HR head, you are a talent acquisition head, you are an industrial relationship head, you are everything. It's like general practitioners. And I have huge respects in the medical field for general practitioners because they do everything. They do everything. Probably when the situation of patient worsens, then they go to a specialist. But middle of the night, if I have a backache or a stomachache or breathing difficulty, the first clinician that comes to my mind is our house physician or a local physician who is basically a general physician or a consulting physician. The entrepreneur is also like that. And they are like the army general, you may have heard of Colonel Lalit Rai, who had this famous war against Pakistan with 18 Gurkha soldiers. He was the head of Gurkha army. There was a movie as well. He actually apprehended and stopped more than 50 Pakistani well-armed soldiers, and they used it with only 16 bullets. That's a story. I mean, if you get an opportunity of bringing Colonel Lalit Rai to one of your convocation or any other session, you see that interesting and so engrossing story. So all of them behave like an entrepreneur. They took their decision jointly, but everybody had the ownership of the failure. Consulting with a subject matter expert, taking an overview or interview through one-on-one session or maybe focus group discussion. Direct observation can have a great effect if you have the performance data. Now, when we say performance data, look at the KPI and look at the targets of the goal. And then you look at actual performance versus the goal and actual performance and the KPI status. And then find out work samples. The people who say work samples, okay, I have seen him working. The best way of finding out work samples to assess training need is get them in a simulation program or get them into role plays. So I mentioned role plays and lab sessions as the typical terminology that we use for role plays. Get them into some simulation and lab sessions and see how they perform. That will give you an idea about what are the specific areas where he or she might require those efficiency improvement. But the 800-pound gorilla question, and I feel very excited to talk about this. What is the way? Way is what about you? What about your own training and development? What about your own proficiency improvement? That's the 800-pound gorilla question. And when I used to work in Marks Up and Dome, I had an opportunity of doing a 7-day-long training program with my boss's boss, as well as the managing director and all the marketing directors on marketing. And we had beautiful conversation with the managing director, KG Anantakrishnan. He's now retired. He used to say, Tom, it's easy. You are a trainer. You train well. People value you. You have your boss, and your boss has his or her boss. The problem with me as a managing director is I do not know whom to go, because nobody will come to me and say, hey, Anand, you need to improve on that. So what we do? Because unless and until I am developed, how do I develop my own team? How do I assess this? The best way to do this is, because it's you at the end of the day, and I go back to the same statement I used a few slides back. Entrepreneurs are not only born, but can also be trained and developed. Get the self-coaching. So you need to look at every day as an entrepreneur in a week, one specific behavior that you will observe on yourself. There is a very beautiful video on YouTube about a young entrepreneur who is a coach. He used to tell, how do you self-coach? So this says, okay, you have to give yourself feedback on some of your action and some of your performance. So get somebody, make him or her stand in front of you and consider that somebody as you, and then you start giving him feedback. He will identify what kind of feedback you are giving. I'll see if I can share this link with Adamus's faculty team. That's a beautiful half-an-hour session or entrepreneurial self-coaching. Apart from that, have an observer, on-the-job observer. That might be anyone. So you have heard of Jim Collins, and you also heard of Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell, the tipping point writer, he said, once he actually appointed his orderly, or the boy who used to serve him tea, as his observer on certain behaviors. And those behaviors were simple. When he serves a cup of tea, how does Malcolm pick it up and sips? And how much time it takes. Those are available on YouTube as well. So net have an observer who would observe you on the job. He would observe you when you handle the team or the partners or the clients. And shadow someone you are inspired by. Look at this person. If he or she is not available, if he or she is available in social media or YouTube, or maybe in locality, just look at, because you got the inspiration from him. So look at what are some of the things he does very well, and how can you improve on those areas as well. And up your reading habits. So we read, your teachers, your professors, you read. I was an avid reader. I stopped reading for about 3-4 months. I will once again pick it up, because now I am working on whatever I have read through. I am trying to put that into my perspective, and I'm trying to put that in my various sessions. When you read as an entrepreneur, read for building new knowledge which will be helpful for you. And always get a mentor. And you see this line, a mentor, not a coach or a teacher. Because a mentor, true mentorship would be mutually exclusive. It's about learning from each other. It's not about I get coached or I get taught. It's about how do we exclusively help each other learn and become better. And you can see these pictures. Some of these pictures you're well familiar with, and I put some of them as well here. So if you look at this person, Air Asia, Tony Fernandez, and this is Devinder Goyal, founder of Zomato. I talked about that. This is Sanjeev Vichand, 99 Acres. Piyush Agarwal, founder of Voyo. And then you have Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, and then we have our own Mr. Ray. All of them are entrepreneurs, right? Not only them, who us also, but one thing which differentiates them from us is they have always looked at one thing. And I can take the liberty on behalf of them to share this. That's my understanding looking at their journey. They think they are convinced. They are convinced about the fact development and success is a journey. It's not a destination. We must enjoy the journey, and that kind of answers Dr. Haldar's questions. What is the difference between an entrepreneur and a skilled person? One difference is you enjoy the journey. Your destiny will be rising and shining. So, Doc, that's about it from my end. And now I think that we have some 7 or 8 minutes to go. Are we good for question and answer?
Yes, perfectly. Okay. So I think you have already answered the question which are already written in the chat box. So, yep. So I have an important question. Like maybe I'm just wondering that. So whether for the entrepreneurship development. Yeah. So whether so then what you lastly mentioned, like mentoring is very important.
Yes.
So is mentoring is more important than the the lifestyle coaching or something like that? So I'm just a little bit confused. Sometimes it's always important to develop your skills through proper traditional coaching.
Yes.
So it's important to have a mentor, or it's important to have a kind of traditional coaching things.
So, yes, great question, Doc. As always. But I lost having conversation with you since my first conversation with you. It's been a long journey. You consider this, and the reason I'm saying that's a great, insightful question. If we look at a professional, they wear three hats. There are three hats that we must wear as a professional, as an entrepreneur. One is that of who I am. The other part is me being a business owner. And the other part is me being a leader. A leader does not mean I will lead team. I have to lead myself. Now, when it comes to me being a business owner, there are various skills I need to develop on. For that, I would require formal coaching and knowledge dissemination. Now, me being a leader, I can get coached well, but there are some other aspects of mine as a human being. What works beautifully being a mentor-mentor relationship, not a mentor-mentee relationship, mentor-mentor relationships, it helps you. It's more like the Johari window. Okay. It reveals your dark spot. So when it reveals your dark spots, because the one famous condition between mentor-mentor relationship is we will be open to each other. We will not hide anything. And when we do that, it gives us a very, very different flavor of who we are as a human. Now, the person who is mentoring me or having a mutual mentored relationship, the coaching that I got in order to make myself a better professional, the mentoring would help us to understand which are the best ways and best areas where I can apply those coaching skills that I got or the knowledge that I got. Now, your coach can be a mentor, but the problem is creating that thin line of difference is tough at times, because at the end of the day, we're human. And I can give it this. Everybody says the carnivores animals, they kill only when they are hungry. But the cheetah, okay, the cheetah and cat, these are the two carnivores who kills like human for pleasure. So if you look at mentoring, am I able to create the thin line of differentiation? When you coach me, you coach me. You do not be a part of my friend, philosopher, and guide thing. You don't show me direction. If I'm able to distinguish that, then the coach can become a mentor and a mentor become a coach. But the reason we want to differentiate this, because mentoring will reveal the inner human side of yours. And you apply that with your coaching that you got and the knowledge that you got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I think I got my answer completely.
Yeah.
So is there any other question? So is there any other question? So if you have any question, anyone, so please do write in the chat box. So is there any other question, anyone? Okay, so I hope that there is no other question.
Okay.
So, okay, then I would like to again thank you, Mr. Tomomu Chattopathy, for your lovely talk, which enlighten us. And
thank you very much. My pleasure always.
And it's a lovely, you have just really, you just told us a story, a lovely story. So it's really a great hearing you. So thank you
Yes,
once
because
again.
you started the day saying that he is a storyteller, so I had to live up to the expectation. So I built a story to best of my abilities.
Exactly, and you did perfect justice to that.
Thank you very much.
So I would like to thank you once again on behalf of Adams University and for also enlightening us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. And end of the day, all of us are entrepreneurs.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all of us are entrepreneurs. Let us rise and shine. Thank you. God bless everyone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, bye.
Okay, so I think we can end.
Has a question, it seems.
Okay, yes. Okay, Miss Sapna Yadav. So Miss Sapna Yadav. Okay. No, so Miss Sapna Yadav. So, ma'am, are you having any question? Ma'am, please unmute yourself. If you're having any questions, please unmute yourself. Sapna Yadav.
That is why mistake.
Okay, okay.
No
Okay.
problem. That's always good.
Okay. Okay. Okay, then thank you, everyone. So we can end this meeting here. So
Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And Doc, see you soon, very soon.
Okay, sir. Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
I just
Okay.
disconnect now. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so thank you everyone. So we can end this session right now. So tomorrow we will start again at 10 a.m. Okay, so thank you everyone.